Hey, this is Jim with NDI November. We have a system integrator spotlight for you today. We are speaking with Austin at Future Grade, talking about NDI technology, some of the great projects that they've been involved in using NDI, and some of the exciting things that they're looking forward to. Austin, hey, thank you for joining us on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back. Love this.
It's always a pleasure when we get the opportunity to speak to people like you that are working with clients all over the country, installing some of the different products, technologies, and of course, handling their production needs and trying to help them to find the right solution. One of the things that we want to do on this series is narrow down that conversation to NDI production workflows and really where that is fitting into the broadcast and event environments today. So, Austin, this is why we invited you to join us because you're working with a lot of these different products and technologies. So, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself and Future Grade to our audience?
Right on. Thank you. Yeah. Of course, I'm Austin James Smith, as you can see there on the screen. I'm the CEO of Future Grade. Future Grade builds state-of-the-art broadcast, podcast systems, studios, you name it, just about everything for video production. We believe we bring an automated, seamless approach, so it makes it easy for anyone on our client's team to operate the technology themselves and ultimately create stellar content every day easily. So that's our goal, and that's what we do, and we love doing it, and we love being here as well.
Awesome. And I know you've had a lot of experience specifically with NDI technology as well, right?
Yep, absolutely. It was one of the, you know, probably something we were focused on a lot, especially starting, 4 or 5 years back when remote production really came to the forefront and became a necessity. NDI really, you know, became a necessity as well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's that AV over IP really gives you some of that flexibility and creativity in kind of handling some of those different production needs for your clients, right?
Absolutely. I look at it in a way where the benefits of any other hardware that you would bring onto a network, like a camera or audio, even, things like a Stream Deck or a RP150, a controller, you know, NDI is doing the same thing. So essentially, if you have anything that's going to be on a network, you might as well simplify your workflow. Use NDI so the cameras are on the network as well. You run audio, you run video all over one cable. There really are just so many advantages, and I'm sure we'll get into that. So I won't go too far now.
No, I appreciate that. It's one of those things that you can really have a lengthy conversation because there really is a lot of different options. For our viewers that are tuning in throughout the month, they'll see a lot of PTZ cameras and video sources being talked about with the NDI technology integrated into them. Some of these different PTZ cameras were one of the first ones to integrate NDI into them, and now just about everyone has it. But one of the
Totally.
things that you point out with the Stream Deck and with other video sources and presentation tools, even bringing in a remote guest over Teams and sending that to a production system like we're doing in our studio today, this is one of those things that having that AV network really allows you to get that capability for, right?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the modern show now, it's not just, a bunch of cameras coming into a single router or video switcher. I mean, we've got computers coming in, we've got, you know, sources from Zoom, sources from playback, and then of course the ability to monitor and work with all of this remotely. You can be on the same network. You can jump on a VPN and share the same network remotely, and you have all the same access to that equipment that you would as if you were in the studio itself. So that for us was a game changer, and it really unlocked and enabled some of the case studies I think we'll be talking about here
And,
shortly.
and that's one of the big reasons why I love having you on the show is because you and I can talk about the high level technology and theoretically it can do this and this should do that. But you're out there installing these systems for your clients. And I know that you've had some recent projects where NDI really helped you meet some of those production needs. So, Austin, can you tell us about one of those projects?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say in this instance with Barry's X here, um, NDI was the solution. We looked
Okay.
at every other way to do it, but the end goal was to essentially serve this really unique app experience where an instructor remotely could interact and train 50 to 100 participants at their home, and not only just your typical broadcast back to them, but they could interact from a digital, from a mobile app directly to their trainer, to get more of that interpersonal feeling that they had in the studio, which is a huge part of Barry's X brand. And using NDI was key for that, because as soon as we introduced a backend with Twilio and WebRTC, we know we're already heavy on network needs, and that we're going to be bringing everything back onto a network anyways. So why go SDI only to have to convert it back to NDI? Let's just start all in the network and make it extremely easy to route video feeds to our trainers, to the participants, and then eventually onto web servers, which need to serve the end experience. So it really was, as we evaluated the project and determined what tech are we going to use here, that helped offer the solution. It wasn't just a choice; it was needed. It was a necessity. So that
And
that
that's
was
what
our
you see a lot
yeah.
of times, right? You'll
Yes.
see as you start specking out these projects and the needs of the project will start growing because they always grow from the initial consultation, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And, I noticed on the recipe that you were showing off here and some of the different things that were involved in this project that you're using the Panasonic PTZ cameras in this workflow, right?
Absolutely. And again, I feel like I'm always coming back to this, but it's just our tried and true. Yeah, well, first off, it's that was the first camera that really, for us, worked with NDI incredibly well, and
Right.
also had the quality and the functionality to back it up to get the image we wanted. And the fact that it worked so seamlessly with NDI it was a no-brainer to use those. And luckily, that's kind of what we use for a lot of our applications. And going back again, we wanted to offer the ability to control those cameras remotely, and also control them remotely with hardware, with the
Right.
RP150, where I could be at home, someone could be at home, and you're, actually moving hardware, moving a joystick, pressing a button, and it has an effect in a studio 1,000 miles away. That was always just such a major breakthrough for us, because that's what people are used to when they're inside a studio. They're used to hands-on equipment. You don't have to do everything just on the computer over a screen share, right? With just
Right.
lagging and you're trying to do something. No, this is a direct connection over a VPN, and you're connecting back to the actual equipment. And yes, NDI was pretty much essential for that. And yeah,
And Panasonic has been implemented NDI, like you said, right from the beginning. And they're even
right.
announcing further implementation of NDI across more cameras and more of their product line. So even since then, they've seen that need develop and grow in the industry, and they're going in even deeper and deeper with the NDI technology and that remote production capability that Austin just spoke about. So, Austin, that's
Yep.
a great case study there with Barry's X. Tell us about some of the other projects that you've been involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to touch on one other thing that is so important in powering those cameras and powering this entire workflow that we create, which is pretty much what we use across all of our builds now, and it's the Netgear routers. I mean, the
Oh,
ability
yeah.
to have PoE, to have data, and then to have all the smart controls and the way, how you can provision the router itself. It's just, that's what we use now. That's what we use in every studio, NDI or not. It's and they continue just to add so much functionality. So I will say that I wanted to make sure that I gave, that gear from Netgear a proper accreditation for how much heavy lifting it did in each of those Barry's X studios, which were, in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York, running every day, 8 hours a day, using NDI and working. We're talking like for instructors, participants on actively putting the gear through its gears, as you would say. But it's just a testament to how well the gear works. And yes, that does parlay into what we learned from that experience and bringing it into some of these other projects, like doing these press junkets for Amazon. We've done it for Palmer, Ted Lasso, all of these different shows that needed novel ways to get the message out there during the pandemic. And here we are again, where we know that everything that's going to be happening is all going to be on the network regardless. That's how we're getting, feeds back from guys like Justin Timberlake and Eddie Murphy, and really surreal kind of experiences there. And there was no need to, integrate SDI in that one. I mean, we knew this is a very modern workflow. It's all going to be network based. Let's stick to what we know it works with NDI.
Absolutely. One of our favorite quotes from NDI November was when Dr. Cross was talking about how the response from a technology and production perspective to the pandemic accelerated the industry and accelerated what we've done. And then you take products like Netgear, and we did have Laurent and Gus from Netgear join us to talk about their infrastructure and to talk about their engaged controller and all the capability built into their switches. So yes, all of that is 100% resounds over and over again as we do these presentations and as we talk about some of these different installs and case studies out there.
Totally. So, it's incredible. Yeah. What Mindshare will do when an industry needs to solve a problem together,
right,
and you put all the minds on it at once, I feel like you get 50 years of growth in a matter of 4. And, right, and that's what we've seen in the products and the technology itself. So it's wild.
Absolutely. So now that's a perfect segue. If we're going to talk about minds being put together and solutions coming out there, this is a solution that FutureGrade put together for your clients, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the studio node.
Yeah, so this again was to solve a problem where we had, clients and with podcasts and being brought onto podcasts being the new norm and being so important to individuals' brands, to a sports team's brand, we saw a need where, an all-in-one system that looks and sounds as good as your regular studio, but you can actually bring it on the road and it'll fit in the overhead bin. And when an athlete or when someone who's probably not as tech savvy pops it open, it's ready to go. And then once they pop it open, we can log on remotely using NDI. All they have to do is plug into whatever Ethernet is there. We also have cellular bonding on board. So, it's always online. You don't need Wi-Fi and you don't need local internet. It's great to have. But if you want to just pop it up in the middle of nowhere, you're going to be fine too, because we do have that cellular bonding built in. And again, this is all network powered everything. So no brainer to use NDI, and it lets us bring in other video sources too if we want, because you've got a powerful network switch in there. So it's been a very cool system. People love it. And I think we've got some new stuff coming with it too that's going to be really cool and open some new doors.
And that's awesome. So I'm sure you're getting a lot of calls about this from the influencers who are growing into more the traditional broadcast space. They're looking to really step up the production capabilities and really step into something to give them that studio broadcast look, but still a very simple ease of operation, ease of setup where you can help get them up and going, right?
Yeah, it's so key. I mean, the bar has been raised to a level now where you're seeing influencers and podcasts that have incredible production value. And at the end of the day, you're representing your brand when you put your face out there, when you go live on any sort of channel, or if you're getting called into, Squawk Box or some other programming, that's you representing your brand. So I'm always kind of miffed when I see big CEOs from tech companies or athletes and it just looks bad and it sounds awful. I'm like, guys, we got to step this up, because this is you, man. This you're representing your team, your brand. You need to bring that quality up to where the bar is currently set.
I absolutely agree. And for those CEOs who are viewing us today, reach out to Austin and his team at FutureGrade. They can help you get that up and running. If you have a technical team in place and they haven't got you to this level, this is the perfect time to bring in a system integrator to help work with your team. Look, everybody, regardless of what their background is, what their training is, the best training comes from experience. When
Yeah.
you have the experience of integrating these AV production systems and the NDI solutions, you're learning from one project to the next, and you're always taking that with you to your next client. And that's why someone like FutureGrade can really kind of roll up their sleeves and help make this as simple as possible, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about what has taken decades to figure out to arrive at some of the products and solutions we have today and workflows.
Yep.
The amount of troubleshooting, and especially when you're going into network-based solutions and you're connecting computers, audio, video all over a network. If you're using OBS or whatever else, there are so many minute little complexities in there that you're gonna get hung up on. And as we know, time is money. So if you want to save a decade, or if you want to save, multiple years of just troubleshooting things, but one of our, something we say is just everything you need will work and will work well, and we can get it done in a few days, literally with some of these products.
That's great. So, with that, what are some of the key advantages that you see for NDI? I am sure that you and your team are listening for different buzzwords throughout a project, different challenges that need to be addressed. And immediately that light bulb goes off and says, hey, there's an advantage to NDI here. Let's start talking about some of these solutions. What would those be?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we know right away that this is going to be a heavily networked type of application or studio, where we're going to be combining a lot of different media sources, right away we can say, do we want to use SDI or something else and then end up having to convert it all back to NDI? Or do we want to just use one cable, one Ethernet cable and the switch, and
Right.
get all the media we need, and essentially bring it to the same destination? So that's the first thing we would look at. I think too, adding sources, right, and adding outputs, and being able to easily designate where those send and receives go. That was huge for Barry's X, because a new output would pop up every day, and that what's beautiful about NDI is it's just that plugging in another Ethernet cable into the switch, or into the router. So it's that easy to just bring another source into the entire production environment. So scalability makes it really easy. And then, yeah, of course, being able to access this all remotely, and having a true REMI workflow where, you can't always afford to have a technician or an engineer or a technical director, in every last podcast studio or set. So, we have certain instances now where we're leveraging overseas talent that are fantastic, and they can oversee, some of these smaller productions and jump in and help troubleshoot. And NDI is a cornerstone of that. I mean, it might not be possible without it, or it would just take a ton of legwork and video conversion and everything else. So, the advantages are pretty clear to me, especially once you understand it. I think that's kind of the first hurdle for some people, is kind of, well, what's the what's special about it? What's the difference? And the way I just think about it is, if you need to combine sources and end up, in a digital application that's not just filming things local, right, where you're just using your typical video mixer and SDI, you're already going to, you're already going to be a huge advantage by just using NDI and yeah, scaling that way.
Absolutely. The analogy we use all the time is when you pick up your phone and you call someone else's phone, you don't think about where they are. It's
Right.
insignificant to completing that phone call. That's what's happening now with the AV technology. When you put it on the network, you are giving less and less care to where they are on that network. And that network can literally be anywhere in the world. And you can bring in them as a video source. You can send your video sources back to them. And it gives you that ultimate freedom of letting your creative talents be wherever they work best, letting your production talent operate from where they're most needed, and put that all together and really get the best message out to your clients.
Well said, for sure, and good analogy too. Yeah, I think that is important. Is with all of our clients, it's simplicity, right? I mean, we need to
Right.
remove all friction from them being able to get online and be able to produce great content and connect with their audience and make it incredibly easy to do so. And the moment that, we have to start explaining anything, really, that you're going to lose them.
Right.
You're going to lose most of them, and they shouldn't have to worry about any of that stuff. We just our goal always is just centralize all controls into a Stream Deck, into a web GUI, and here are the buttons you press, and everything else will be interconnected. And NDI is definitely one of our tools that makes it a lot easier when we're dealing with network-based applications and remote workflows, for sure.
All right. So this is where I have to throw the red flag a little bit. We're really painting a pretty picture. So now the next question I have for you is, what are some of the challenges with NDI, and how does Future Grade work around those, and what are you transparent with your clients in investigating this technology?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, bandwidth is a key, right? You need to have some heavy duty bandwidth and powerful, at your local studio. You want to make sure you have dedicated internet that can handle, you know, you probably want fiber, to be honest,
Right.
locally. If you want to run that many sources, every source you add is going to pull on the bandwidth. And so if you want to go, the higher resolution you want to go, the more bandwidth it's going to pull on. So, scalability is easy. It's very easy, but you do need to be conscious of how much basically power you have within your internet connectivity and how many gigabits per second each line is, each connection, because it's all going to be pulling on it. So that's one thing that we're transparent with, where, if they want to push the resolution, sometimes we have to, you know, opt for, depending on how many sources are connected, we might have to opt for bringing the resolution down a little bit to 1080. Still looks great, still sounds great. Also helps the fact that, these switches, Netgear, and that we do use, that we solve a lot of problems on the audio side by, using Dante and making that much easier. I mean, that's a godsend. So those are the trade-offs. You might offer a little bit of news that, hey, we might need to reduce some resolution here, but we just simplified something else.
Right.
So yeah, I would say that's definitely one of them. There are some latency challenges, syncing challenges that can come up. There are a couple, sometimes it can, with any new technology, be a little finicky, or having to plug things in twice just to get it seen by the source, and especially when we're combining um, something like SDI, like a video mixer, and then we add on NDI as well, and literally use both, which
Yep.
is also a strength of NDI. We've used that for motorsports broadcasts, where we've had half of the cameras are all SDI and coming into one router, and then we have the other half are all NDI coming into a switch, and then we merge them together in a single video mixer, and it works great. But sometimes there are a few things we need to troubleshoot through, and that's just a part of new technology. Yeah,
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is the number one challenge that you talk about is also the number one technology that is growing at its fastest pace ever right now.
absolutely.
Bandwidth and the availability of that bandwidth is growing leaps and bounds, not only in this country, but throughout the world, where it's not going to be the challenge that it is today. And it's not the challenge it was even a year ago. You're seeing with NDI technology and implementation like NDI HX3 that there are new protocols that are reducing the bandwidth needed. At the same time, the bandwidth is growing. So it's these two worlds are converging to give you the best medium in between, allowing you to get more of those sources and more of that capability out there. So it really
You
is an
nailed it.
exciting time for sure.
No, you nailed it. There's no it's something I was thinking about last night actually, that that is a challenge, and it's always something we consider, but there's no hard ceiling on bandwidth, especially as fiber and internet connectivity become more ubiquitous across even the modern home. You know, and as 4K streaming becomes a must have, all these internet service providers are scaling accordingly to provide us the bandwidth we need, and that which in turn benefits NDI. So that's why I have no problem integrating it, because I know in parallel these two technologies are growing together.
Right.
And yeah, it's just going to unlock higher resolution and more video sources at the end of the day.
And that segues right into the future of the technology. Austin, what are some of the exciting things that you see as we invite you onto the show next year and years after? What are we going to be talking about?
Yeah, I think an expansion of NDI, and the ability to bridge, for better remote production experiences. I think there's going to be a lot of improvement there. I think syncing and clocking within NDI, and being able to have reliable sync across networks and destinations that are, you might have certain productions where you've got one camera team in Ohio and another one in California, and we're all on the same network, and we're providing different camera feeds and content essentially from those remote destinations, and bringing them all back into a central feed, much like a typical broadcast would. And knowing that we can sync those in real time, and that there's an internal clocking within NDI, um, that will that will be a huge advantage, and I think it'll open up a lot of use cases. Um, and then probably some really cool adaptive network capabilities of recognizing where bandwidth is not as strong, and having the intelligence built into the protocol to scale accordingly, resolution wise, so that there aren't any kind of kinks there, or dropped frames, or stutter, or pixelation. I think that'll be a huge improvement. Um, and yeah, I mean, I keep going for sure, but I think I
You know,
love all those.
I think the overarching theme of some of the things you talked about are really the NDI tools and the
Yes.
management of the network and the broadcast capabilities, and making that easy, not only from the
Yes.
person designing the system, but the person managing the production or the event in real time, to be able to heal a network, make sure this is in sync with that, and the video feed coming in from California is just as good as the one from Ohio, and putting all of that management capability into that network, and putting and making that network available to everyone is definitely one of these big advantages that I see in the future as well.
That's a great point, and probably yeah, something I should have articulated too is the fact that when you have a protocol, sitting beneath everything, working on that is always the priority. And once that's up and stable, then you get to work on the actual tools that sit on top of them and the UI and the usability and build out a robust suite of how to manipulate this protocol. Much like AI, you have your models that sit beneath ChatGPT or any of these other products and different LLMs, but they're only going to be as usable as the applications themselves and the tools themselves, which ChatGPT has done an incredible job of, and that's why people use it because it's easy.
Yep.
So once as NDI tools become more robust to help us manipulate the protocol and achieve functionalities, that's going to unlock a world of applications.
Absolutely agreed and well said. Austin, thank you so much for joining us today. For our customers who have tuned in, you can reach out to Austin and the team at FutureGrade at future-grade.com. They are located in California, but you guys are working all over the country, and it sounds like you're even dabbling globally as well, right?
Yeah, it's not as much lately, but
Okay.
in the past 10 years we've been everywhere,
Nice.
So yes, wherever it takes us, happy to do it. And in an interconnected world, it kind of just makes sense. So yeah, thank you so much for having us back. It really is it just you guys are doing a great service here, and I look forward to the next one.
Looking forward to having you for the next one. Thank you again for joining us. Make sure you tune in for all of our NDI November shows. You can see the full schedule at ndinovember.com. One registration gives you access to this and all of our shows, case studies, features, product spotlights, and more. And of course, an opportunity to win some of the great prizes. So definitely register at ndinovember.com. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Austin. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.